Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel, The Bearded Hermit. And this is the greenhouse I built back in May of this year. It's kind of a modified A-frame design. It's 10 feet wide by 20 feet long. And today I'm going to be showing you how I built it. Growing my own vegetables has always been a hobby of mine. I feel like it's important to be able to grow your own food, and it's kind of fun. So let's take a look and see what I did. This here was the old greenhouse. It's about 18 years old and in rough shape. The plastic it was wrapped in is long gone, and most of the wood is either dry rotted or sun damaged. It all has to go. I start by removing all the screws and staples I can find, taking apart the door and roof, and trying to get loose all the metal wire fencing. Tearing down the roof was fun. It was so rotten I didn't even need any tools. And here I removed the last little bit of plastic that used to cover the greenhouse. It was in really bad shape after all these years. It started to get a little windy from a storm blowing in, so I was trying to hurry. And wouldn't you know it, my battery died on my drill. I get the last of the wire fencing and T-posts out just in time. The next day, I trim all the grass short and cut off a few small trees to prep the area. The only thing remaining from the old greenhouse was the foundation. These log beams have been laying here for maybe 18 years or so, and they're a little weathered, but they're not rotten. So I tore down the old greenhouse, but I left these as a foundation to start with the new one. After I had the old greenhouse tore down and removed, went to the store, bought my materials, mostly 2x4s and this clear plastic roofing here, and got to work. First thing I did was I went online looking at greenhouse designs, and I liked the A-frame, but with an A-frame it gets so tall and it was kind of an eyesore, I thought. So what I ended up doing was I made this modified A-frame where I chopped the top off. And then I started making trusses. The rest of the day was rainy, so I moved into the workshop to make the trusses. The 2x4s stand up at a 60-degree angle with the top piece at 6 feet high, just enough to walk under, and a slightly angled piece on the top to shed the rain. I figured out all the angles and lengths and used the workbench as a template to make the 6 trusses, connecting everything together with construction screws. Making them identical really helped things go together when putting everything up. I liked the A-frame design because it snows a lot here in the UP of Michigan, and an A-frame sheds the snow really well. So the sides should not be getting much snow, but the top will most likely hold snow, but it's less than 4 feet wide, and I don't think that much snow can collapse or cause any damage to this design. But we'll see after the first couple winters. After building all 6 of these trusses here, I put up each one of them, spaced 4 feet apart, all the way down the 20-foot length of the building. After bringing all 6 trusses outside, I added a 2x4 to the foundation and started standing up the trusses one by one. I used a couple braces to temporarily hold them, always checking for level. After the first 2 were standing, I attached a 2x4 horizontally at the top to connect them. After this, things were going fast, working my way down the 20-foot foundation. When working alone, clamps are your best friend. Throughout this video, you will see me constantly using clamps. I cannot recommend them enough. They're an extra pair of hands when you're alone. It's really starting to take shape at this point. I had been a little worried about doing this part alone, that I could not stand everything up by myself. But it all worked out great. I ended up putting a little overhang on the west end of the building because that's where most of the rain's going to be blowing in. After all the trusses were put up, then I added horizontal 2x4s every 30 inches on the south wall, on the roof, and then coming down the north wall. This locks everything together and makes a nice surface to screw the plastic roofing to. All I need to do is measure every 30 inches down the walls and run my 2x4s down the length of the building. At 20 feet long, it only needs one 12-foot 2x4 and one 8-foot 2x4 to make the full length. And it's always a good idea to stagger those joints back and forth between the 8 and 12 footers. Something you never want to overlook is ladder safety. It becomes more important when working alone. Make sure you're on level ground and test the ladder to make sure it won't move. Also remember to never stand on the top 2 rungs. Using clamps, the work goes fast. And it's always a good feeling to plan a project and have it work out okay. There's nothing worse than having a plan and finding out halfway through it won't work, or that you bought the wrong materials, or that you didn't buy enough. Having a solid plan is worth its weight in gold. It starts to rain on me, but I work through it to get everything done. At about this point of the build, I decided that the 2x4 second to the top does not need to be there, and later I take it off. In projects like this, there will always be changes or mistakes. It's important
to not get hung up on them or discouraged, and just do what you can to fix them.
After the trusses were up, I ended up framing the ends and making 2 doors, one in each end. The doors serve the purpose of entering, but also ventilation. As you can see here, it's a nice warm sunny day, and this greenhouse will get very warm. And with both doors open and a little roof ventilation, keeps the temperature just right.
Building the walls was easier than I thought it would be. I attached 2 vertical 2x4s to the top 2x, as wide as I can make it for the opening of the door. To the left and right of the door opening, I simply add a few pieces for bracing and to attach the clear plastic covering. When working on a project outside, it's also important to have some place like a workbench to work off of. Here I'm using this old countertop to hold my chop saw and other tools. This really saves my back. For me, there's nothing worse than working off the ground. Moving on to the west end, I repeat the exact same steps, building the door opening and adding bracing on each side. Also adding a few pieces above the door as spacers for the clear plastic to be screwed to.
Once the basic framework is put up, I started doing the roofing. Cutting all the pieces to length and screwing them on the framework with roofing screws with washers.
I bought 12-foot lengths of clear plastic to cover the greenhouse. At this length, I could cut both the top piece and the long side wall with little waste. I always try to design projects with standard building material lengths in mind. I try not to make so much waste. Sometimes it doesn't work out this way, but I always try. This part of the job goes really fast and makes me feel like progress is getting made. Moving on to the short roofing pieces, I see I've ignored my own ladder safety rule and I'm standing too high on the ladder. I don't recommend anyone do it this way, but I guess in the moment, it's what worked for me. And then finishing up the south wall.
One of the last things I needed to do was actually build the doors. So I built barn doors in 2 pieces. The top piece can open up for ventilation, and the bottom piece can be locked here to keep out rabbits or anything out of there. And it's just a very simple latch system to get in and out. But if you want to close it up, if it gets cold overnight or if it wants to rain, you close both doors and tighten everything up.
Back to the workshop to make doors. I start by cutting out all my pieces from the 2x4s to the same length to make identical doors. Next, I'm marking and notching out the pieces of the frame to be screwed together. This bandsaw is a very useful tool in the workshop. Putting door frames together goes fast. I put these diagonal braces into the doors, not thinking too much about it. After hanging them on the greenhouse, it was brought to my attention that they are upside down. The diagonal braces should start at the bottom hinge and go to the top corner of the door for the best chance of keeping the door from sagging. I hung the doors opposite of this way. If it becomes a problem later, I can go back and fix this, but for now, I left it alone. These doors have clear plastic screwed to the front, and this should be enough to keep them from sagging. I used a piano hinge to hang all 4 doors, and it seems to be working out very well. But time will tell if they hold up in the weather. It wasn't so easy to cut this plastic on the angle after it was on the wall. If I had to do it again, I would definitely cut the pieces first, then hang them. And moving on to the west end, I repeat all the same steps. Hang the doors and cover everything with clear plastic. Being almost done with a project is a good motivator to finish.
And the last thing to do on this project was to make some raised beds and fill them with dirt for the veggies.
Back in the workshop, I find some old boards that are not too good. They are not very straight. Some have very large knots in them, so they will make great raised beds. I start cutting them up to make 4 boxes, 18 inches wide by 8 feet long. In the greenhouse, they will be full of dirt and wet all the time, so they needed something to protect them from rotting and the bugs. I ended up buying a torch to burn the boards and the corner blocks. I have to tell you, this was the most fun part of the whole project. Assembly is straightforward. I'm attaching a corner block to each of the end pieces, then attaching the long board to make a 4-sided long box. Laying them out this way makes the most sense to me. 2 long rows to plant in with a center walkway. I ended up filling the 4 boxes with a mixture of black dirt, peat moss, cow manure, and sand. The last thing I do is to make the latch to keep the barn doors closed. I think it's a simple design that works great. Instead of buying something for like $50, I used a few scraps of wood and basically made it for free.
As you can see, This bed here is full of tomatoes. Over here I had some sugar snap peas growing and green beans. And I gotta tell you, I've never grown green beans before, but when you pickle them, they are delicious. I also ran a water hose into here and installed this valve system. So I have a water hose here set up on the middle valve, and on this valve I have a soaker hose, and the soaker hose runs through each bed and it turns on automatically for an hour every morning, giving all the plants water. I added this metal lattice here for all the viney plants and tomatoes to grow up. This helps them keep off the ground. I had an old countertop that I cut in half and made table legs for it here. So I have a little 2-foot workstation on this side, 2-foot workstation on the other side. And because of the design with these 2x4s up top, they're really good for hanging pots. So you can hang plants up here, grow herbs, start your plants. They just hang and get up out of the way. And also, I have my roof ventilation here. So, when it's a hot sunny day, we open up a roof panel, let the heat out. And if a storm comes and it gets windy, we just close it up and lock it. And then it keeps the heat in. Well, today's pretty warm, so we're gonna open it back up. All right. And so there you have it. I think this is a nice growing area. Nice place to sit and relax. Do your planting in the spring, grow your seeds, grow your veggies. And there you have it. My greenhouse build. It was a lot of fun doing. For many years to come, this is going to be a great place to grow vegetables and eat healthy.
I hope you enjoyed the greenhouse build. Stay safe out there, and remember, life can be good sometimes.